This is just an introductory video on how to use the TI Inspire. So if you just got started, pressed a few buttons, you most likely ended up on a screen that looked like this, or perhaps it looked like this. So what's the difference? Well, this is called a scratch pad. The other one is a document. You can go back and forth between them by just pressing right now the scratch pad on this button and right above it the ESC or escape, and it takes you back to the document. Okay, maybe you don't have a document open though, so this will not work. If you need to do that, you can come to here where it says doc. Okay, just click file, okay, and then new. All right, so now one thing that's good to know as well, when you see all these numbers, you don't have to just keep on pressing the down button. You could just type the number 1 and it will go there. Also, Control N would work as well. Okay, so let's go with no, and here we are. Let's add a calculator. Okay, so now we have a screen that looks very much like the scratch pad. So the scratch pad, I recommend using this if you just need a quick answer. You don't need to reference it again. It's kind of like scratch work or scrap work, if you will. And what I would recommend for the other one, the document is really useful if you want to save this work or perhaps reference it later. You could open up many pages as you'll see just now. Okay, so for example, if you go to doc, we can go to file and save as, and yes, that would work accordingly. And obviously we can open it up later. Okay, so let's get to some interesting things here. One thing that's really useful on any screen that you may be on is to look at the menu, which is right over here. And I advise you to just play around, see what options there are here. Some of these you may do later on in your math career, depending on how old you are, such as calculus. Okay, but let's start with a simple one, such as number. Okay, I encourage you to play around those and just get familiar with it. You can also just press ESC to go back a screen. Okay, so on this screen, the scratch pad, you can easily move up and down by just pressing up over here. So up, 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 okay? And what makes this useful is, let's say we wanted to bring this down, just hit enter on your calculator, and it brings it right down to the bottom there. This makes it really easy if we want to edit something. So maybe we meant to say 4 subtract 2. You can make an edit, and there it is. Something else that's useful, maybe we wanted to have 2 7, so we can go up, we can hit enter there as well. We can convert that to a decimal or an approximation by just pressing the buttons Control and Enter. So Control, this is an important feature on the calculator. It allows you to access in this calculator it's all in red, it might be blue or a different color on yours, but it allows you to access what's above the buttons themselves. So Control Enter would take you to that approximation sign and hit Enter, and there it is. So it approximates it for us. Now, a couple things that are important here. Maybe you don't want this number. Maybe you want it to be to a different setting. So you can go to menu and actually wrong button, go to doc, and then we can go to settings right here and document settings, and you'll see you can change this. So this is showing 7 digits, degrees. There's many things here which I won't get into the details right now. Okay, so some other things that are useful. Maybe there's a lot of work. You want to go to the top of this screen. Well, one thing you can do is press Control 7. Okay, let's try that again. And we're right at the top. Okay, and Control 1 would take you back to the bottom. Now, say we wanted to just get to the 15/7. Well, you could just click it. That does work. But you can also press Control 9, and it took us one above. Okay, but if we do that again, Control 9 should take us to this one or the one right above. Control 9. And there it is, okay? So it's taking us up a screen, or Control 3 would take us down a screen, okay? But if you want to go all the way up or all the way to the bottom, Control 7 to the top and Control 1 to the bottom. What's also useful with Control is you can use Control C, Control V, and Control Z, just like you would on a computer. So for example, let's say we type this, and then we can Control C, plus Control over here, Control V. There we go. So I copy and paste it. Okay, and let's just hit enter for now. Now we can also undo that by just pressing Control Z. And there we go. Let's do it again. Control Z. Control Z. And yeah, it just keeps on going back. Okay, so other things that are useful is right beside this button number 9. This has a lot of features of the calculator that you may have to use. Some of them may be too advanced for now, but let's just stick with some of the basics. For example, let's take this one. So this is the cubed root of, say, the number 8. What are three numbers that when multiplied together will give you 8, and it's 2. Okay, so once again, a useful button to know. Now, something else is Control Divide would take us to what's above the divide button, which is a fraction. I do recommend that you use this quite often, as you may make a mistake. Say we wanted to do 4 minus 1 in the numerator. Well, if we do 4 minus 1 and then say divided by 5 without using the fraction button, the calculator will misunderstand what you intended there. So if you wanted to do it another correct way, you'd have to do 4 minus 1 divided by 5 with parentheses, and then it would understand. So I do recommend using the fraction button to avoid mistakes like that. Okay, some other things to keep in mind is variables. So let's say we wanted to let the value of a be 3. You can do 3 control var, which is variable, and right above that takes it to store. So we want to store that into, say, a. And let's store another number into b. Okay, so we have a is 3 and b is 5. So let's say we wanted to do a times b. Well, let's do something simpler. 2 times a. So 2a, you can see a is bolded because now it's recognized as a variable. If I type c, it's not recognized and it wouldn't work. But 2a does 2 times 3 and it works. Now, another thing that's useful or important to know is if you try to do a times b, so let's see ab, it doesn't understand that you're doing a times b. Why? Because we can actually let ab be a variable by itself. If that sounds a little confusing, maybe it'll make sense if we give context. So instead of a, maybe a means apples, and we wanted to say 7, let's store that into the variable apples, okay? That actually may make it a little easier as you can understand what apples means, whereas a might be a little vague. In any case, if you want to do a times b, you can do a times b, and now they're both recognized, they're both bold, and just hit enter, and there is the answer. Okay, so we have quite a few variables defined here, a, b, and apples. We can just find that by pressing this var button, and there are what's available. Now F1, if you're wondering where that came from, that actually corresponds to this tab. Okay, and there's already something entered in here. If you want to see how to get that quickly, press this tab button. Okay, so tab, and here we are, and you can just go up or down. Okay, and this function was already entered. So the F1 that was referenced over here in the variable var was referring to the other one. Okay, and as we're here, we can do F1 of 0. That's letting x equal 0. If you don't know what that means yet, that's okay. I'm sure you'll learn it soon enough in your classes. Okay, but F1 of 0 just means let x equal 0, and the value is 5. Okay, so what I'll show you now is the documents. So once again, we can go to doc. I'll just do it all over again. A new document. Okay, and no, we'll add a calculator. Okay, so what's nice about this is we can add other pages. So control doc will get you to plus page, and we can add a graph. I think these are the two most important pages you can open. The others are useful as well, but you most likely will just use these. So for now, I'll just stick with this. This document here, you can use it just like we used the Scratchpad. Okay, so let's go back to the Scratchpad tab. This one, the calculator one. This works pretty much the same way when we're over here, so I won't repeat what we just did. 1.2 works the same here. Okay, so do remember that menu is an important button to know of, because you can use this if you ever want to know what you can do. So right now we can change the window, we can play around with some of these, have a table. I can't use the table yet because I need a function defined. So f1 of x, if you're not used to this, it's like y equals mx plus c, but we're just using something called function notation. So we can say y equals x plus 5, and here is an equation. Okay, so let's go back to the menu. Let's go to table, split screen table, and we have a table of values. Now, I don't know if you caught what was there. We can access this by just pressing Control T. Okay, and that's a quick way to go back and forth between this table of values, the split screen or not having the split screen. Okay, and once again, play around, menu, trace, graph trace. You can go left or right, and you can see the points are changing on here. Okay, you could also just type a number right now because we're on this feature 5. It's letting x equal 5, hit enter. So 5 equals 10. And you can see it changed the window for you. So another useful tip is double click these numbers at the top here, say 11.33. We can manually just change that to 20 and it changes it for us, or the 10, we can change that to 5 and it changes it for us. We can also hold on to this little hand over here in the middle and grab the screen and just move it around like this. So very useful to do this. You can manually change the window by zooming out, zooming in, go back to the standard. You can edit the window settings from here. So there's a lot to play around with there. Okay, so also something that's useful, a tip for if you're on a test, let's say, and there's a few questions, maybe you're doing some work here and the first questions, you had some work such as this, okay, but maybe you want to go on to a new problem, or maybe, here's a better example, you let 8, you store that into the value of A, and you moved on to another problem. Well, what you can do is you can go to Doc, go to number 4, which is Insert, and then insert a new problem, so number 1. And we can add a calculator. So you can see it's 1.1, 1.2, 2.1. 1.1 and 1.2 are linked. So this function here is going to be show up in the variable. So here we have A in function 1. Now those carry over once again from 1.1 to 1.2, but not the new problem 2.1. So maybe, let's do control page, let's add a graph. Maybe we want to have a different equation here that doesn't get interfered by the first problem. So this is nice because now we can use the variables, we can start all afresh again, which may be useful. This is also easy if you have a test or even homework problems and you want to refer to the specific question, you can find that easily by just doing this. To move between the pages, you can see I'm clicking this way, but you can also go control right or control left, okay? And when you're using, I'm using a laptop right now, but when you're using this by hand, it's much easier with your fingers to use control left and control right rather than just going all over all the time. Although the other's not too hard either. Now, something else that's useful, we have 3 open here. And let's say we had a lot, like for example, one second, control right. Let's say I kept on adding some pages. I have multiple calculators and it's getting out of hand. And maybe some of them are accidental. Well, just press Control plus, and now we can see everything. And this is a quick way to see everything we have open. Okay, so we can come here. We can also delete this if you wanted to. So just hit delete, and there goes one of them. We could delete another. Okay, and then we can just click on the screen we want. Okay, so that's useful to know as well. Okay, so that's quite a bit for now. I would say the most important thing you need to do is just be curious, explore, like it's a phone, just play around with things, press things. Every year I teach students, teach me new things that I never knew existed. Okay, so have fun with it, explore, and yeah.